Welcome to Relationship Mastery, a podcast for those who want to learn how to master the art of creating happy, healthy, and loving relationships. Please join me, Adey-Jones, and my co-host, Barry Selby, each Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific for a lively and informative conversation on everything to do with relationships. Hello, everyone. Welcome back for another week and another interesting chat with Barry. So, hi, Barry. How are you?
Hi, Del. Yes, this is going to be an interesting conversation for sure.
I don't think you're a sociopath, Barry. I would never say that.
I appreciate that. It's also the fact that I'm not sure if I know enough to be more of the questioning versus the answering side of this conversation.
All right. Well, so the reason I thought this would be a good topic to talk about is number one, I just finished the book that everybody's raving about. I think it's a New York Times bestseller or something. It's a New York Times bestseller called Sociopath, a memoir by Patrick Gagne, PhD. So, and it's a really interesting read. It's very, very popular. We read it in my book club, and it was one of the liveliest conversations we've had about a book in a very long time. It was very interesting. And I'll just give you a little brief outline about the book. So it's a memoir. It's about a young girl, a woman rather now, called Patrick, who says that since she was a child in kindergarten, she realized she was different to other children. She felt that she didn't, that people didn't get her, and and this is where it gets complicated because it's how do you know what you're not feeling if you don't feel it? Is one of the questions that came up for me.
Oh, yeah.
So that was sort of interesting. But she said that that she wanted what happened was she felt she knew a very little bit about sociopathy. I mean, apparently it's one of the first personality disorders to be diagnosed like 200 years ago. But very little has been talked about it. We tend to think of it as, oh, those sociopaths that are in prison that do terrible things. And it starts off by, hurting animals and, they end up killing people. That's more of the psychopath. But certainly the sociopath is along the lines there. Barry and I were just saying it's like narcissist, sociopath, psychopath. It goes in that order, or it used to. They've rewritten it now and put it all under antisocial personality disorder. But I'm not a therapist. I'm not going to go deep into that. But this woman, Patrick, said that she realized very early on that she didn't feel like other people felt. And there were certain behaviors that were coming out. She said she felt that she didn't feel fear. She didn't feel guilt. She didn't feel empathy. And that's why it was hard for her to fit in, even at kindergarten.
Right.
And she then, at some point in her life, she got diagnosed as a sociopath. And she chose to, she wanted to, well, she felt there wasn't enough, there was just too much of a blanket statement, and it was lumping everybody in the same category of horrible, horrendous person, keep away from them. And she didn't feel that that was a fair judgment, and certainly of herself, even though she had hurt animals, not killed them, but almost killed them, had stabbed a little girl in school in the neck with a pencil and felt great relief at that.
How lovely.
Yeah, really. Certainly something
Wow.
your kids bringing home and playing with. But she ended up going on to, she did her doctorate on the subject of sociopathy, and she even was a therapist for a very short time. She's not a therapist right now. But the reason I'm bringing all of this up, she does get married, have a relationship, and have children. So knowing all along that she has been diagnosed as a sociopath. So I thought this would be a fascinating subject for us to talk about as relationship mastery on this relationship mastery podcast. So I want to get Barry in here, but I just thought, just in case people are going, well, what is a sociopath? I'll just run down a little list of what generalized lack of empathy, extremely manipulative behavior, pathological lying, super charming, impulsive, reckless, a disregard for rules, narcissism certainly comes in that too. And I think maybe even the next show we'll do more on what the difference between being a sociopath and a narcissist is. But there is narcissism in there, complete lack of guilt or remorse, poor relationships, clearly, because who wants to be with with somebody
Right.
that like that, and also irrational sort of aggressiveness, prone to outbursts and verbal and physical abusive behavior and aggression towards others. So that's what we're talking about here. So knowing that those are the characteristics of a sociopath. Barry, would you marry a sociopath and have children with them?
Do you really want an answer?
Yeah, I'm curious.
The thing was just the way you described it, and I have met some people over the years who I would probably suspect would fit in that category. Obviously can't designate them so because I'm not a therapist either. However, those traits are pretty blatant.
Yeah.
And yes, I would say the majority of sociopaths haven't been diagnosed anyway. My suspicion, I don't know the numbers exactly, but it's like
actually 2% apparently of the population.
have been designated or have actually checked.
Are diagnosed as sociopaths. 2%. It's quite
Right,
high.
but how much of the population are sociopaths? Is it 2% or is it more than that?
Oh, well, exactly. You're right. Yeah. I mean, those
So,
are
because sociopathic behavior. I mean, it's been put in the news because certain sociopaths are basically they move into the criminal behavior type of thing because they have no boundaries. The thing about sociopaths, the way I'm interpreting it, again, being a layman, not being a therapist, is the feeling that my boundaries would not be respected, my emotions wouldn't be received, I wouldn't know how they feel because they don't have the whole spectrum of emotionality available to them, or should say they don't interact with the whole spectrum of emotionality. So they don't deal with guilt, sadness, frustration, upset, wound, all these different things that, frankly, I feel a whole person would have. So for me personally, the idea of a sociopath in interaction, even in interaction with friendship or business, my hackles would be raised, my defenses would be up because I wouldn't be able to feel authentic connection to them because I look for certain qualities in a person, regardless if it's romantic or not, where they're fully present in all of who they are versus only part of them can be seen, sort of thing. And the sociopathic title, label, however you want to put it, tends to indicate somebody who has those traits is only showing through one lens or one perspective of who that is. And frankly, it's not very enjoyable to be around somebody like that as far as I'm concerned. So the answer to your question simply is no.
And this is what we found fascinating was a part of the conversation we had was it was interesting that number one, I mean, okay, let me just preface this by saying I am not saying that sociopaths can't be lovable, that you can't love them. I think you certainly can. I mean, there's something to be loved in every single person in the world. I think you can find a quality to love in somebody.
Right.
It's whether you choose to be in a relationship with them or not, a close relationship, knowing that part of the package you're getting is yes, they can be charming, yes, they can be fun, yes, they can be impulsive and all of those things, but knowing that the charm is usually the intention behind the charm is to manipulate and to gain power and control.
Mm-hmm.
And also knowing that the relationship is going to be very shallow without all those emotions that you were just talking about. And some of those emotions are teachable. You can learn. You can learn them over time. I mean, if we didn't parent our children in a certain way and guide them and show them the difference between right or wrong, there'd probably be a much higher percentage of antisocial personality disorder out there of people behaving in that way. So a lot of these behaviors are social norms that we teach our children and we values that we grow up with. But empathy is not something you can teach. I mean, it's very interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
It is. That's the thing for me. That getting back to what I said earlier and touching that is that human connection really does involve an emotional level. It's not just, I can see you, so therefore I know you are, sort of thing, or holding hands. It's the emotional piece that's the biggest component that brings us closer together. It's what creates intimacy in a lot of ways. It's what creates the desire to be with somebody. So to have somebody who basically is like using analogies, kind of like 2-dimensional versus 3-dimensional, it feels very hard to connect to somebody like that. So yes, as you said, those skills can be learned because we all can learn them when some people learn them when they're kids, some people learn them as adults based on what they're going through.
Yeah.
And yet at the same time, a lot of people are sociopathic, I suspect, may not even have gone that far ahead to learn skills that make them less different, for one of it.
Yeah.
And so for me, that experience is definitely challenging. So just to finish up, the idea is that it's basically like being on the outside of a house, knocking on the door, never getting in. That's what it feels like.
Exactly. And it just came in my head and went out again, but let me think for a second.
It'll
Oh,
come
yes.
back.
The author, Patrick Gagne, she definitely is somebody that has put a lot of, she's incredibly self-aware, has studied, has, I mean, I'm not endorsing the book or not endorsing the book. I found some of it very interesting and some of it I was a bit, not so sure about this. So, but the point is that, like you said, you if you're going to be in a relationship with somebody that has all the positive qualities, when I say positive qualities of the sociopath, meaning the sort of the
Shiny bits.
the shiny bits, exactly. I love that. Yeah, exactly. The bits that make them very sort of charismatic and charming and alluring and all that stuff. Besides all of that, I really get the just totally accepting another human being for who they are, good, bad, and ugly. That's fine and that's great. And I think as an adult to an adult, that's your choice. And there are
Yeah.
some people that don't emphasize emotional connection in a relationship for whatever reason. They're more cerebral, or they have some sort of bonding issues, where they don't want people to get too close, or whatever it is, that they are quite comfortable being in a relationship that might not have the depth, the emotional connection and depth that we're talking about. But what I found interesting was so I'm fine. Her husband, she got married, she has a husband apparently who loves her and accepts her and knows her for who she is, and was quite entertained by her tales of, because they met when they were teenagers at some camp or something. And, she told him everything about her lying and breaking into houses and stealing cars and pencils in the neck of a friend and things like that, strangling the cat. And he was sort of a little bit in awe of how open she was. Oh, and shameless she was. And that was the other thing that came up here, which was quite interesting, was, we as a culture, we are so, shame really dominates and controls a lot of our behaviors and our attitudes. And so he was sort of entertained by the fact that she had zero shame and was sharing all of this. Like, it was like, oh, I had, bacon and egg for breakfast. It was like nothing to her to share this. My question comes in is, she basically, I just don't understand. If you know that you have an emotional or an inability to express love and affection, that's the part is, I don't know if I would have brought children into the world, knowing that I was a parent that couldn't, I empathize with them, couldn't give
Couldn't
them what
emotionally
they need.
connect.
Yeah, give
Yeah.
them what they need. So, I mean, and fair enough. Okay, so her husband could, and he does, but those children are still one parent short of what I feel is a really, probably the most important part about parenting, which is that empathy, connection, deep, profound
Absolutely.
love, emotional. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's the one part that left me feeling a bit like, really?
The thing that came up for me, because when you said about the way sociopath is in some ways what it isn't, because I was just realizing, like, the before and after idea basically is that when you meet a sociopath, the dazzling of their brilliance, of their bright shiny object type energy can be so attractive, but then when you connect with them and you start looking at being in a relationship with them, there's nothing to back it up. As in, there's no connection, there's no empathy, there's no depth. I was talking about with being a parent, same things in a relationship. So the challenge is that we can be very attracted to somebody who looks like that, but we daren't cross that line into a relationship because we know we won't be fulfilled because the person doesn't bring that to the conversation. Not they won't, they just don't, because it's not their wiring.
Mm-hmm.
So the challenge with sociopaths oftentimes is they can be tantalizing, but you got to keep them at arm's length.
Yeah.
Like you can, like, I mean, I'm sure there are celebrities, other people who are in the media who are sociopaths, but they're so fascinating because they look so glamorous and so dynamic and so this, that, and the other that we are drawn into them like a, like a,
Moth to a
like,
flame.
well, moth to a flame, yeah. But the realization is they don't give anything back.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really is looking at somebody's picture versus getting to know somebody in person. There's that difference. And so the challenge with the sociopaths, and so I commend the husband in this relationship to know that he chose into that relationship with this woman, knowing what she was. And she was very honest about that. Because the thing what you said about how they met as teens, that was the thing that got my mind going, is that she was so titillating to him because of all the maverick things and the rebellious things she did as a kid, which for a woman doing that can be very sexy.
Mm-hmm.
However, there's the other piece missing, which makes it doesn't mean you can't follow through, sort of thing,
Well, I think the other thing is too, as you said something about, the charm and the charisma and the shiny ball energy and everything.
Yeah.
That they don't back it up. But the thing is, if they have an intention to get something off you, they can keep doing it. So
Oh, yeah.
that's where you have to be very careful. It's not like it's just like the first course is this, and then the rest is going to be whatever. It's no, that first course can be repeated and repeated and repeated. You
Mm-hmm.
know that what they offer you, as long as they're getting something that they want back. It's the
Right.
second they decide that they don't want you anymore, or there's nothing to be gained by being superficially charming and seductive and charismatic, that it's just like the door's closed, bang,
Yeah.
off to the next one. That they well, that's a lot. Also, with slipping into a bit of narcissism here, because I also maybe we'll do it in this show because we're talking about this, but often you'll get people saying, well, what is the difference between a narcissist and a sociopath? So I think it might help to just touch on some of those
Okay.
things here as well, so people aren't, I mean, because there is such a crossover, there really is. But
Yeah.
narcissists are more about, it's outer referencing. It's about seeking validation and admiration from others and love me, give me, and they do, they need it. They have to have it. It's a vulnerability. Whereas a sociopath
Right.
really couldn't give a
Okay.
shit,
Right. Yeah.
honestly. It's
It's like, I'm doing my thing. I don't care about you. I'm doing what I'm doing. And it's almost
it's
that sense they don't need anything else.
exactly, it's just about personal gain. It's like thrill seeking, and manipulating without so much the admiration. See, that's the thing with a narcissist. They'll manipulate, but if they sense they're losing you, they'll there's a lot of juggling to get you back because they need that admiration, they need that pumping up, they need that to feel good about themselves, to feel special,
The
to
validation, in fact.
say that again. Oh, your validation, exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas a
Yeah.
sociopath is just no. I want what I want and when I want it. But
Yeah.
the other one is
I mean,
that. Sorry, carry on.
I'm laughing about it, but the reality is so clearly distinct. That the narcissist being externally referenced, whereas a sociopath is totally oblivious to whatever's outside them.
Yeah,
And it's such a clear, in sense, even though they overlap a lot, that distinction is so clear
yeah,
because ultimately the experience on the other side of being the receiving end or the other side being involved with a relationship with a narcissist or a sociopath can feel similar to a degree
hmm
because they both look dramatic and amazing and enticing and exciting, but where they're coming from to get that or be that is very different.
yes, exactly, exactly. And the other thing is they both lack empathy. Again, because the narcissist is so focused on themselves that they just don't have time to put themselves in your shoes. It's all about me, getting what I can when I can get it. Um, so there is limited empathy, but they, it's not a complete lack of empathy. It's limited empathy with the
Right.
narcissist. Whereas with the sociopath, it is a complete lack of empathy because, as she says,
Mhm.
she just doesn't have the same feelings, and she was acutely aware that other children had fear, and she just didn't have fear. She didn't have. And she actually has this interesting, it's Patrick Agnes has this interesting uh, theory behind why sociopaths act out like they do. She said it's because they have this underlying sort of numbness of no
Hmm.
feeling, that is just unbearable. Which is a feeling. If you're feeling it's unbearable, then you're having a feeling. But apparently, she said she would act out to just feel something. that she
Hmm.
actually would break into people's houses and just sit there and spend a couple of hours in their house watching their TV. It wasn't to really take anything, it was to experience doing something that she knew apparently was wrong, but made her feel more alive, but not fearful. She didn't have
Hmm.
fear about it. It was just more like this need for some disruptor to disrupt her feelings. Um, so the narcissist also, has that inflated sense of self. I'm grandiose, more important than anybody else. But the sociopath is more, my needs are more important than anybody else's because they,
Hmm.
again, nobody else exists except for them. They
Right.
don't have um, that ability to care about what anybody else thinks. I'm just trying to go through my list and make sure I'm covering a few things. Um, when you're in a relationship with a narcissist, sometimes it can be really intense. It's a very dramatic relationship because there is that need to connect, that need to get that admiration. So it can be a very emotional relationship, very fiery, which can be very attractive to some people. Whereas with the sociopath, there's a numbness.
Right.
There's no, need for that. Um, Again, lack of guilt and remorse. I mean, sometimes narcissists, they do have feelings. Not maybe they're not the healthiest person to be in a relationship with, but they can feel guilt, and they're often defensive about it, and some remorse, but it's short lived. Whereas a sociopath, again, is remorse. What's that? Guilt. What's that?
Yeah.
You
It's
know,
not even in their wheelhouse at all.
Exactly. So risk taking is also one that overlaps. Again, the narcissist is, it's that sort of I'm better than anybody else. See, I can get away with things, but they don't break the law so much because they need the admiration. God forbid they get caught,
Yeah.
and in the eyes of others, they're a bad person. So they just fly under the radar of social,
Yeah.
antisocial
That's the
behavior.
difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Usually,
almost like narcissists. It's like narcissists in a way. It's like they don't want to make any waves. They want to keep ripples down because they don't be. It's almost they don't be noticed. Whereas sociopath doesn't care.
yeah,
Notice me. I don't care.
exactly.
So
And
the
what
difference.
happens is the narcissist, their external persona and community matters to them.
Yeah.
They want to be admired. They want to be seen as the good guy. It's behind closed doors when the really nasty, controlling,
Yeah.
you know, stuff really happens. But they're very concerned about their public image and how they look. Sociopaths couldn't give a damn. It's like, again,
Mhm.
it's like, and they will. And that's why we were saying earlier about the studies on how, what the percentage is of sociopaths. Most of them are in prison. And that's why we get these studies from, because their antisocial behavior, they're oblivious almost to when they're really crossing a line or violating social norms, if they're
Absolutely.
not keeping themselves aware of that. So,
And I was going to say one of the things to be aware of is that some of this might be tempting and exciting for some people. And the thing about some people look for excitement in relationships. The challenge is that when you're with a narcissist and somebody, if you're with a sociopath, it's like being on a roller coaster that doesn't end. So
mhm,
you can be very exciting, but you're eventually going to burn out your adrenals trying to stay up with the excitement. So
yeah,
choose a relationship where there's both, excitement and calm, so you can enjoy both aspects. The challenge with when you're with somebody who's in that dysfunction, in that way of being, you may get way more of one than you are the other. And you can start feeling very out of sorts with yourself. So just notice when you're entering a relationship what you notice about the person, how they act, because ultimately, with relationship mastery as a theme, you want to become really masterful in your own relationship skills. So you want to be noticing what your partner or the person you're dating, who they really are, not um, the fantasy you're carrying about them.
yeah. And the other thing to really keep in mind too is both with the narcissist and the sociopath is it is about power and control. You'll never
Hmm.
be seen as an equal. You'll never be valued as an equal for different
Yeah.
reasons. As I said, the sociopath just wants to sort of live their life on their terms, and never, not have anybody stop them or moderate their behavior or anything like that. And the same with the narcissist. It's about, power and control again.
Hmm.
So I also wanted to mention, just for the last few minutes here, and you brought it up, Barry, is the only way that we can ever guard ourselves about getting seduced into these relationships is, again, self-awareness, knowing ourselves. Are we prone, is our self-esteem so low that we are prone to the flattery and the charm and the manipulation that these types of people will exert on us? I mean, if we are so out of reference and need this validation from others, we are waving the flag saying, hey, choose me. I'm going to
Mhm.
be easily manipulated, easily flattered, easily seduced, used, and and then discarded. So really, that's something that we need to look at. We can't control other people. We can't stop people from being narcissistic or sociopathic, but we can look at ourselves and work on ourselves. So, what are your thoughts on that?
In a way, it's almost like we need to trust ourselves,
Mhm.
ultimately, because the thing is that we can be tantalized and tempted. I mean, just think about car commercials or any other commercial for that matter. Is they're looking to sell you stuff, so they want to get you invested and get you interested and get intrigued. So you start discovering, oh, this is going to work for me. This is cool. It's exciting. Well, in some ways, dating is no different from that. So I would suggest that you hone your skills on the commercials first. They're probably on dates as one way of doing it.
Mhm.
But notice when you get pulled in, what is it that you're being tempted by? Because when you're dating somebody, something about them is going to pull you in perhaps without you actually stepping back and go, okay, let me see the whole picture. Because really for me, the dating conversation comes back to if I step back and look at the whole person and how I look to interact, what am I missing? I'm not saying that you're looking for the bad stuff, but you want to see the whole picture.
Yeah.
So you're not just seeing the highlights. You're not seeing the shiny bits of the chrome for the car and not seeing the dent in the back bumper sort of things. Like it's that level of discernment of knowing what you're looking for. Because if you want a real healthy relationship, ideally you want to know you want to have a relationship with the whole person, not just part of them.
Yeah.
And when dealing with narcissists or sociopaths or other people who are incomplete in that sense, like they're not presenting all of who they are, that's a clue that maybe you're not going to get what you want.
Hmm. Yeah. And I also feel like, I know for me, my self esteem was so fragile when I was younger that
Hmm.
I needed, I was looking for that validation. I was looking for those compliments. I needed to be told I was special, that I was, whatever, whatever. As I've, thank God, grown up and the esteem comes from within now, not from without, when somebody churns on the charm too much, or I can sense there's a manipulation, it's so interesting because I feel myself recoiling from it. It's because
Hmm.
I recognize it for what it is, and it doesn't mean I'm suspicious of everybody that's charming and funny and engaging. I'm not by any means. I find it lovely. I love it, but I can sense when somebody is going overboard where I couldn't have sensed when I was younger. It was just
Right.
it was like I was starving for that. So I was just gobbling it up without being like, hang on a minute, is this real? Is it fake? You know is it grounded in reality, or is it just I'm so hungry they can say anything to me and I'm going to fall for it?
Right.
So again, know yourself. Know that you are the only one that can fill that hole inside. And it sometimes looks like it's coming from the outside in, and they're providing you with something you don't have: admiration, love,
Mm.
excitement, whatever. But my suggestion is do it for yourself. Fill
Yes.
yourself up first, and then you are ready for a healthy relationship.
Yeah, that's the way I work with my clients too. Is about making them better partners. As I said, the shorthand is I help them become better partners to attract better partners, and so it really is the inner work, same as you do. It's like really working on yourself so you become not so much just a better partner for somebody else, but a better partner to yourself. So when you meet somebody, you have a better sense of discernment, and you recognize who they are more clearly and more quickly. It's just for your own self support, really. So why not do that?
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, that was a good chat, Barry.
Yes, deeper topic again. I love it.
And anybody out there, the book was called Sociopath, a Memoir by Patrick, and she spells it Patric, I think it is. And I think hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Gagne is Gagne. But a fascinating read. Um, As I said, some parts I found very interesting. Some parts I was a little bit like, oh, I'm not so sure about that, but whatever. If you want to learn more about it, and obviously there's tons of stuff. Oh, another book that I read years ago, which is often recommended for people that are in a relationship with a narcissist, is called The Sociopath Next Door. And because there are so many similar traits between sociopathy and narcissism. So, yeah, go and be well read, well informed. You are
Indeed.
not susceptible to these relationships unless you know what that's fine and it works for you. As a consenting
Mhm.
adult, we all have that choice. So,
Absolutely.
okay, well, thank you, everybody, and we will see you next week.
See you next week. Take care of yourselves.
And you too. Bye bye.
Bye. We trust you enjoyed this episode and invite you to share this with your friends and loved ones. In fact, please subscribe to our Relationship Mastery podcast. That way you'll get each new episode fresh and shiny as soon as it is released. We'd love to hear from you as well. So go ahead and enter your questions and comments at relationshipmastery.show. Take good care. We will connect with you in our next episode of Relationship Mastery.